It's time for another podcast by George. Straight talk, straight from the heartland, that'll have you saying, "By George, I think he's got it." Now, here's George.
Hello, hi, how are you? And welcome to another podcast by George. Welcome to Self-Quarantine 2020. You know, and it's not a self-quarantine in parts of the country at this point. New York and California, the governors of those states have told people or ordered people, unless they're essential, to stay home. So if you don't have the good sense to stay home, the governor told you so. So stay home and watch podcast by George. We're going to try to bring some news and views and blues and entertainment and stuff to kind of ride this thing out. My God, I hope it doesn't last too long. But it looks like it is going to be an issue. So we'll do the best that we can here on Podcast by George. It's a lot of fun for me because I'm able to hook up with people that are normally out and about moving around. It's not too hard to get a hold of folks right now. And today's guest is going to be in the category of entertainment and music. You heard me chastise the national media and the television networks on an earlier podcast by saying, my God, guys, put something on television. Everybody shut in. Get rid of this crap that you normally fill the airwaves with and put something on that's entertaining, that's informative. Put some music on. Put the arts on. Put some live performances on. Can't have any sports. Let's do something. And then I thought to myself, well, hell, George, that's why you started the podcast, was to try to provide an alternative or an option to folks so they don't have to watch that stuff. So that's what I'm going to do today. A good friend of mine, a great musician, Catherine Severing Fox, is joining us on the Podcast by George live line. Welcome back, Catherine.
Hi, George. Thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
Delighted to have you. And for our folks that aren't familiar with you and your work, I'm going to start off by embarrassing you with this bio. I don't know why it would, though. My God, I just love to read this stuff. I do this with Stephen W. Schmidt, the Lucan Endowed Professor of Political Science up at Iowa State University. His biography, you almost believe that it isn't real when you read these things. It always makes me think how I've wasted away my life when I look at what other people have been able to accomplish in you at such a young age. This bio reads, Catherine Severing Fox received a Bachelor of Music Performance degree in viola performance from the University of Miami Frost School of Music, where she was a student of Ms. Pamela McConnell. Now, she remained at the University of Miami for her Master's of Music degree in viola performance. Graduating May of 2015, she was a teaching assistant and a Henry Mancini Institute Fellow. During her studies, she played in numerous ensembles, including the University of Miami Symphony Orchestra, the University of Miami Opera Orchestra, and the Henry Mancini Institute Orchestra. She's had many chamber music experiences, such as playing in the Frost School of Music inaugural jazz string quartet, the first of its kind at the Frost School, and the Henry Mancini Institute String Quartet. Now, that HMI String Quartet, as it's known, recorded a CD the first part of 2014. She also has the distinct privilege of teaching underprivileged students in the school district of Miami, bringing private string lessons to children in the inner city. I love that. Good on you, Catherine. She's played in all over South Central and Southeastern Wisconsin. But here's where it gets interesting, and here's what surprises a lot of people, because, you're local, you go to a local performance, you think this is a local-only musician. Not necessarily so, folks. Listen to this. She's performed in PBS specials with Gloria Estefan, Bobby McFerrin, Chick Corea, and more. Some of Catherine's other performances include backup orchestras for the Beach Boys, Take Six, Kenny Loggins, the Osmond Brothers, Lou Gramm, Gloria Gaynor, Pharrell Williams, Michael Feinstein, Dee Bridgewater, Terrence Blanchard, Dave Grusin, Monica Mancini, Mark O'Connor, Denise Graves, Kevin Spacey, of all people, Shelley Berg, and Kate Reed. In 2017, she went to China to play with the Hollywood Film Music Orchestra. Okay, this just goes on and on. Catherine, how did you become so experienced, well-traveled, and so accomplished at such a young age?
I feel really fortunate and fairly lucky in some ways, or in a lot of ways, actually. A lot of opportunities early on were because I was at a college that did that sort of thing. So that whole HMI thing that you kept talking about, that program is the whole reason why I got to play with half of the people on that list. it was either because of the school or because I happened to be attending the school and people knew me because of that. And so it's just, I don't know. Yes, hard work, but also knowing the right people and being in the right place at the right time.
Well, it kind of makes me wonder where you're going to go, because you got a jump start here. I mean, you seem to have it rolling. Now here, where I'm at, folks can catch you with a jazz duo, Rivers Duo. And of course, our good buddy, our good pal, my cousin, believe it or not, in an extended way, Bob Pace, is performing regularly with you all out and about with a group called the String Prophets. And we'll talk about Bob a little bit here. But tell us about yourself now. Tell us about, okay, so this is the list of accomplishments, but how did you get to that point? And this is interesting for everybody because everyone's got kids. Music is always a potential possibility. I mean, everybody picks up an instrument in, like, I don't know, 5th grade or something, it seems like. Most people set it down. But how did you get to be so accomplished on this particular instrument?
Well, honestly, I've just kind of been obsessed since I was a kid. My dad played some viola, and that actually, when I had the opportunity to pick up a string instrument, I think it was 4th grade or something, I don't know. I was like, man, I want to play viola. I don't want to play violin, actually, which is funny, ironically, since this is what I have in my hand right now. But I was really drawn to the low pitch sound. It's really similar to the violin, but also just kind of sounds like a cello. Looks like a violin, sounds like a cello. I don't know. So I was just obsessed with practicing. I had already been playing piano for a couple of years before I took up viola. And I don't know, I come from a really musical family too. Lots of classical musicians, so lots of opera singers actually. My mom has been a coloratura soprano for all of her life. She's just an incredible singer. They both do a lot of conducting. So they're also like bluegrass musicians. People like my aunt and uncle, they have this band called Runaway Express, and both of them have actually played with the Nitty Gritty Dirt Band quite a few times too. So there's just a lot of diversity in music in my family. And so I've just always been really drawn to music and to exploring new genres.
Nitty Gritty Dirt Band. Okay, so that brings me kind of back to my past again. And of course, they're best known for that great Jerry Jeff Walker's song, Mr. Bojangles. Now, you and Bob cover that. I've heard you play that. That's a great song. And, in my own experience now, going back to the day, and I think, okay, fiddle players. I mean, you had Jethro Tull, Marshall Tucker, Kansas had some of that in there. Electric Light Orchestra had all instruments, but they also had fiddle in there. Bob Dylan traveled with the Rolling Thunder Review with a great woman violinist, a fiddle player. I can't remember her name, but she was great. They did that song Hurricane. And of course, I think, okay, those have got to be the influences. No wonder somebody would want to pick up this instrument with all of that great music going around. But most of those people their heydays were long over before you ever decided to play this. So was it the bluegrass music that got you mostly interested in it, or jazz, or a combination of both? What was the biggest influence?
It's definitely jazz. I grew up listening to 30s and 40s standards, fell in love with the lyrics and the melodies, just thought they were really beautiful, rich harmonies. And I never, though, to be honest, I never thought, oh, I can play jazz standards. I thought, I love them, but I hadn't been seeing videos of like fiddle players or viola players playing standards. Maybe if they were like in a backup orchestra or something, like Nelson Riddle or whatever, like a full string section. But I started watching videos of people like Regina Carter, Mads Tolling, Christian Howes. They're just some. Oh, and then of course, Stefan Grappelli, who's like my total idol. I mean, he's incredible. Well, was incredible. And they have all just very different styles, like just virtuosic playing, but in different ways. And I don't know, I was just drawn to doing something that wasn't the normal thing to see.
Yeah, well, You know, this is funny to me because you probably you wouldn't know much about Velvet Underground and Lou Reed, and I think that Nico that played with him or whatever, they had fiddle in their music, but I'm not familiar with some of the people that you named either. Now, that great jazz musician that you mentioned, that fellow, is that the gypsy jazz guy?
Yes, it is. Yeah, Stefan Grappelli did a lot of playing with Django Reinhardt. They were kind of, I guess you could say, like musical soulmates. It felt like. So, yeah, they did a lot of gypsy jazz, which is another thing that I'm really interested in, as is Bob. So we do some of that as well in our shows.
You know, I don't want to speak for Bob, but when I think of his music, what's his Rosetta Stone? What does he go back to? Well, it's the blues. And, electric blues. It might be somebody like Eric Clapton or whatever. What would you consider to be your touchstone, your Rosetta Stone, as far as a musical piece is concerned? And you got the fiddle in your hand. Can you play a little something just for funsies here to let people, if somebody said, to give us, yeah.
Well, the truth is like, I don't know that I have a musical identity. I think about that a lot, actually, about what I think I am as a player. Am I a bluegrass player, jazz, blues? But
well, here's an easy thing. If somebody like me was just to ask you, play something, what comes to mind? What would you play?
Well, to be honest, it probably would be something bluegrassy, which is what there's this tune that people were really drawn to for whatever reason, which is great. Maybe, out of happiness, joy. Bluegrass has this energy about it. And I wrote it a few days back, and people seem to really like it. So I could play a little bit of that.
That's great. So that's news. It's unnamed probably at this point, I would imagine. So what draws you to that? Of course, when I think of bluegrass, a lot of it's kind of up tempo like that. It's not furious playing, but you got to keep up with the pace. Obviously, do you find that challenging? Is that part of the intrigue of it, or is it just something else intrinsic to it?
I think it's because I am so drawn to rhythm, and bluegrass is really driven by rhythm and the energy behind the rhythm. So I think that's why I'm really drawn to it. I'm drawn to each genre for different reasons. I think like jazz was because of the rich harmonies. Blues is actually like the phrasing for me, like the way that somebody phrases the words or their notes. That's what I get drawn to with people's solos, like Bob's solos. I'm like, oh man, I love the way he just phrased that. That's really great. They all have different aspects that I'm drawn to.
Well, and a lot of that, of course, you do need that other player. The gypsy jazz stuff's a good example. I mean, that was Reinhardt and the fellow that you mentioned. But also, I've got access to some clips. I'm going to put in a little bit of this Drake performance that you did on my podcast, doing the song "Hero" that you played, and the emotive experience of this. And that's one of the beautiful things about this particular instrument is really outstanding. So let's listen to a little bit of that, and we'll come right back. So that's the song "What Makes a Hero," and I've got a little piece of that. I helped write that. I've put the lyrics down for that, gave it to Bob Pace, and he developed the song that he plays acoustically. He plays it with his electric band, and of course there it is with Catherine Severing Fox on the violin. And my God, is that any good? Well, you know, and I love to have this entertainment component during this self-quarantine time. And it's a tough time for a lot of folks. I wanted to ask you about a Facebook post of yours that I saw talking about how this affects musicians, particularly the local gig musicians that are dependent upon, the weekly, if not every other day shows. God, you guys, you play a lot. That's all shut down. And what I tell folks is, these musicians, they live not only off of the tips and the cover charges and that kind of stuff. They live off of the vibe. They live off of the juice, the excitement that they get from the crowds and the interaction with people. I know when I go see you perform, one of the highlights really is talking to you before the set, during the intermission and that type of thing. I know you guys really dig that part of it, and it all went poof here, within the last week or so. So tell us your thoughts on that.
I think the beautiful thing right now is that because of this quarantine, we're all having to figure out how to be creative. And yes, it is really hard to not be doing the normal gigs, to be, connecting with people through those gigs, whether it be through the music that you're providing or just through a conversation about the music and how it is affecting them. But there are a lot of people doing Facebook live streaming events, which is great too. And actually, I'm doing this thing that Jana West just started up, where she contacted some of us about kind of doing like a split screen type idea, so that people can contribute to a song that she's written and just add whatever you think feels right over the top. And she's putting this all together, editing it all herself, which is really great. So that we're still making music together, even though we're not together. And Bob and I are on a daily basis writing music together. And it's really great because we've been wanting to put out a CD too. And it's kind of like, well, this was somewhat of a blessing in disguise in some ways, because now it's, forcing us to have all this time to be able to, be creative and spend time together, just, throwing ideas around. But it is really hard financially for people. And I feel terribly for anyone that relies solely on gigs and tips, because I'm lucky that I teach and I still have an income in that way. So it's a hard time.
So are you teaching on the internet then, as opposed to meeting one-on-one with students?
I've been lucky that a lot of my private students outside of the college have agreed to do either FaceTime or Zoom lessons, and it's going really well. It's very different. It feels very different because I don't know, when you're teaching an instrument, you want to be hands-on, which isn't possible in this case. But it's working, and it's, I think, giving people that nice distraction that they need, and I have to do all of my college classes starting on Monday and lessons starting on Monday online as well. So.
Well, okay, so let's say somebody's watching this and they say, I got Grandpa's violin upstairs. I've always wanted to, and I got nothing to do here. I'm shut. How do they contact you? I mean, how do they take a lesson online?
Sure. You can contact me through my website, which is catherinesevering.com. You can also go find me on Facebook, either my personal Facebook page or my business one. They're both, I think, Catherine Severing Fox. And then the business one would be Music and Entertainment. Or, I don't know. I could shoot my email out here too. It's not like it's my phone number. My email is catherinesevering@gmail.com, and you're welcome to send me an email. And I'd be happy to help anybody get through this dark time.
Well, here's what I'll do. I'll put a link to your website on the podcast pages and I'm on a lot of different platforms, and that'll give a little extra extension of reach out there, because you mentioned you've got this teaching adjunct to your performing career. Some folks don't have this, but one thing about it, and I tell folks, and a lot of people don't, they think that this is like a weekend thing for you, or, like you go from your day job to a bar someplace. No. This is your life. This is what you do. You're dedicated to this. And there's a lot of folks like that. Like Bob Pace. He told me one time he drove a truck once for, a few months. And basically, that's it. I mean, he's my age. This is all Bob Pace has ever done. This is all he's ever going to do. And during times like this, the bad news is it's tough. The good news is, because he did that, God, is he good? Holy cow. I mean, that's how you get to be good. So, all right, we're out of time. And I mean, that happens. So I looked at my clock. I can't believe that we run out of time here. But I wanted to pick up another one of these clips to kind of illustrate where you're at, what it's all about. And I keep thinking about this gypsy jazz stuff. And I've got these YouTube clips. Tell us what we're going to see and hear here.
Since Bob and I both realized that we're very into gypsy jazz, one of the first things he said to me was that he could hear some Stefan Grappelli in my playing. So then we immediately jumped to wanting to do that genre. So this clip is going to be of a tune called Minor Swing, made famous by Stefan Grappelli and Django Reinhardt.
All right, and this is gypsy jazz, right? Okay, here we go. Check this out.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Well, there you go. That's a great example. That's what we're talking about here, folks. That might be her Rosetta Stone. That's gypsy jazz, and that's Catherine Severing Fox and our good buddy, our good pal Bob Pace, whose CD you can see right next to my right shoulder there. He's on the bookcase in every podcast that I've ever done. And his music opens and closes the podcast a lot of times also, along with the Desharm Jones Band and Matt Woods, all great musicians. Well, Catherine, we got to take it out of here. We got to wrap it up for today. There might be an opportunity to come back to this sooner than we think, as we're all sitting around waiting for the scourge to pass us by. What would you like to say in closing here as we wrap up today?
I just want to say thank you to all the people that are big supporters of entertainment and live music. We do live for it, and we hope to see you out soon.
That's great. That's a great way to wrap it up, and I'm looking forward to, I don't know, maybe not seeing everybody, but everybody's seeing me. It always kills me. We'll see you. I can't see. I can see Catherine now because I'm talking to her, but I hope everybody sees us pretty soon on, YouTube and Facebook and Spotify and iTunes, all those places where podcasts are seen and heard. You can check it out. But for right now, that's going to wrap it up. That's going to do it. That's another podcast. By George.